Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This has been a fun chapter, I suppose, a fun show to review. And if you're not familiar with it, this is on Netflix. And of course, you don't even have to have Netflix to chime in on this show. And what we do, or what I do, is give you my professional opinion. That doesn't mean that this is the be all and end all. No, it's just my opinion. After 30 some years professional work and seeing spirits since I was 4, there's a little bit of experience there, and I guess hundreds of spirits saying the same thing, or everybody having the same experiences, just like what we saw today, or saw in the episode 5 of the show, where science can't prove it, nor can it disprove it, which is great. So at least that puts an aha or a in the minds of those people who are scientists, which I love. And we'll get to that later on when we talk about Dr. Kerr, I think it's Christopher Kerr, who is an end-of-life doctor who is doesn't believe in mediums or spirit communication or something like that, but he does believe that people experience signs from spirit, or they do in fact see what's going on. So I've got some photos to show you guys. I've got some notes, of course. And for those of you that are on the live webinar, feel free to raise your hand if you want to chime in, or if you have something to share. That's great, because I know that you guys have probably all had your own experiences. If you could kindly just keep it short, stick to the facts, and then we can all get all excited about what you guys have experienced, because there's so much and it's so varied, but then some of it's so the same. It's very cool. So anyways, let's move forward. This is Surviving Death, episode 5, Seeing Dead People. Dun, dun, dun. Don't you love it? I just love this show. And to be honest with you, I didn't know if I would have enough material to do just an episode 5. I thought maybe I'd have to mix it with 5 and 6, but we got it. We got it. The show opens up with Mariah, who's a paranormal investigator, and she talks about the tools of the trade. She's got this little doohickey that has little bars on it like this or whatever, different colors, and it's said to pick up an energy shift or whatever. And then there's these little cat balls, which I thought, what a great idea, because they only light up when there's movement. Oh my gosh, what a great idea that was. And then, of course, there's always the voice recorders and other means of EVP recording, that kind of thing. And I've been on a few investigations myself, like with paranormal investigative teams. And each one works different. Some people are very techy and have a lot of wonderful, fancy, schmancy equipment. And then some people have voice recorders. I really feel that just because you have all the techy equipment doesn't mean you're going to catch more. At least that's what I've seen. So you might have all this great equipment, but it doesn't mean that you're going to capture more evidence. Maybe different evidence, because maybe the cat balls are going to collect something different, or some kind of noises or movement different than what maybe an infrared camera would, right? So that is a benefit, of course, but are all these tools and gadgets necessary? No, they're not. No, they're not. So, of course, as a medium, I have a different perspective on what's going on, because some of the paranormal investigations that I have done, I'm saying, okay, I'm talking to a man over here, his name is blah, 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 but they're not picking it up. And that's where we come into the different wavelength scenarios. So different spirit operate in different wavelengths, different energy frequencies, just like we do, right? We talked many, many shows ago about each one of us has our own energy frequency, so to speak, and I call it a radio station. And spirit are no different than that. Physics has proven that the energy around us, or the energy that is us, doesn't die. So that means that even though we shed our physical body, which is really just kind of like a puppet, if you will, we don't die. So where does that go? That leaves a bunch of little energy waves, blobs of energy floating around, doing our own thing. I love it. I found it really interesting that in the show, this Mariah, she shows the Queen Mary, which is coincidentally the same ship my mother-in-law took over from England to US in 1946. The Queen Mary was known, it was a warship, it carried soldiers, it carried war brides, forever. And it's now docked in, I know it's California, Long Beach. So it's dry docked. Well, I was lucky enough to go spend a week there taking a class. It's haunted. It is seriously haunted. It's interesting, because I say haunted as in, because that sounds like it's malevolent, and nothing that I experienced was malevolent. No, there were people there, spirit there, that were still partying. That was their gig. It was funny because when I was there, I kept on hearing this music. And mind you, they pipe in music, all like big band stuff and things like that. But the music I was hearing intuitively was not the same music that they were piping. And then one day I was walking through the parlor or something like that, and they have a piano on display. So it's on display. It doesn't work, or they're keeping it, hands-free, if you will. So as I'm walking, I'm seeing this lady singing, and I'm hearing her singing with the music in my head while the piped music is playing over here. Let me tell you, that week was something very, very interesting. Lots of activity, lots of like 1940s activity. Very, very neat. Very cool. I just thought it was really neat that she had actually investigated that, because if I can hear that with my own intuitive ears and see those things in my intuitive eyes, I can't imagine the hundreds of people that passed on the ship, during wartime and traveling back and forth between the countries. And it's just amazing. Just amazing. Then we moved to Deborah Blum, who was the MIT science journalist. And I thought she was pretty interesting. She talked about imprinting energy on a physical place. Very often I will experience that during an investigation, or even in one of my readings, it'll come up, where a repetitive movement, repetitive travel, if you will, is picked up by an EVP or even a medium or something like that. And for me, when I'm doing a reading, for instance, spirit will show me running water. So when I see spirit showing me running water, I know that there's Native American that needs to be brought up. So very often what I've seen in people's homes that I've gone into for this purpose is that there's some kind of running water nearby, a creek, a river, something like that. Not a pool, not a lake, running water. Now, I can't say it doesn't happen with a lake, but lakes can be man-made and things like that, right? This is more like a good river. So I see Native American traveling back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so I know that some of the paranormal activity in the person's house could very well be Native American, and they're picking up the travel. Now, very often what you'll see, and it doesn't happen too often to me when I'm in a reading, and what I see is a spirit person entering in from one side of the room and completely exiting from the other. No interaction, no visual connection. What I see on my end is just like a misty whoosh of energy going through. but I can definitely sense that it's a person and not just like a breeze. This is like walking, 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 walking. So very cool, very cool. And when I investigate people's homes, which I don't do any longer, I see often the repetitive things. One of the investigations that I did was actually turned out to be on an ancient pig farm, to be honest. Well, not ancient, but early 1900s, like 1901, 1910, somewhere around there. And so what the homeowner kept on witnessing was stench, like dirty soil, like feces or something like that. And that, of course, when you talk about feces, you're talking about entities. This is not a good thing, not a good thing. And so I went into this investigation not knowing anything about the land. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about the homeowner than their first name and the address. That was it. So when I went into the building or the house, and I kept on seeing pigs. I kept on seeing pigs in the house. It smelled more like a farm. It didn't necessarily smell like rotten feces. It smelled more like I was on a farm, right? And the manure and the hay and all that kind of stuff. Sure enough. So I asked the homeowner, I says, you've got to do some history on this land or this property. Sure enough, it was a pig farm. So, and that I don't know if I mentioned this or not in the Surviving Death series, but consequently that homeowner, the pig farm owner, the farm owner, was a bit threatening. Was a bit threatening. Do we see spirit? You betcha. And I can't tell you how many times people have said the same thing. I could have sworn I saw my mom. I swore I saw my dad. Or I could have sworn I saw the person on the side of the road and there's nobody there. Things like that. We see dead people all the time. And I did notice that there was a big difference in how the people in this show used the difference between spirit person and ghost. Because some of the same people who are on this show were in show 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and they talk about spirit people. They don't talk about ghosts. Now they're using different terminology. However, what I'm seeing, there's no difference from their standpoint. I'll get into that a little bit farther down into the review today. Kind of give you my 2 cents. So if you were just joining in, thank you everybody for coming on. Please, if you're on the live, raise your hand so I know that you have a story to share about seeing your dead people. All right. I'm also, hello, Sherry from Portland, Michigan. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to take Connie. And remember, you guys, please keep it short because there's a lot of you that might want to share, okay?
Okay, yeah. So this happened like 20 years ago. I was actually visiting my mom, but I was laying in bed. It was middle of the day. I was totally awake. And suddenly I saw this beautiful angelic being, which looked as real as any human that I've ever seen. She was right there in the room, and she had a love in her eyes. So anyway, she suddenly appeared, and she had this beautiful long blonde hair, looked very angelic. And actually part of me, the human part of me, is freaking out. But a part of me is happy because I've had friends that have been able to see since they were young, and I've always wanted to. But when it really happened, it's so real because I've had them come to the dream sometime. But anyway, so she saw that I could see her, and she started towards her, their arms outstretched, and I got too excited, and I lost the vision. So anyway, my intuition was that it was probably a premonition. My favorite aunt had just entered hospice for cancer. So I assumed it was a premonition because I've had those sometimes. So the next morning I emailed her daughter and told her the experience because I knew her daughter's into this stuff. Anyway, her daughter emailed me back. She said, Connie, my mom passed yesterday. So the question I had asked you is, because she didn't look at all like she did in human. So I would assume that spirit people can appear however they want. And Or is that a higher, like an oversoul of her? Is she angelic at the higher levels? I
No,
don't know.
but you know what I was thinking is, I don't think that that was your aunt, to be honest with you. I believe you saw an angel coming to let you know that she's entered the spirit world. We got her.
Oh,
That's my opinion. That's
I
my
kind of
opinion.
clear up a little bit. That could very well be.
You
What?
know, as we spoke earlier in the previous shows, spirit can appear differently, but you would still know it as them because they would still look like them, right? Pardon me. But my guess, it was probably an angel.
Also, they don't. Okay, because I just thought maybe as I wouldn't be afraid or something. I don't know. And my
And that's
mom.
probably why she came through. But you see, this is probably your angel, not necessarily her angel. This was your angel.
And come to think of it, she did look. I had an angel drawing, artistic thing years earlier, and she looked like that angel.
Ah, there you go.
So,
Okay,
well,
good.
interesting. Well, because no, my mom's 2 months later, my mom told me that she saw her too, but I didn't ask her what.
Okay.
My mom, it took her 2 months to get the courage to tell me she saw somebody in her kitchen, and I thought she meant like a burglar. She said she thought it was her sister, but
Okay.
well, interesting.
Very
But I
good.
had souls come to me in the dream state and they look like themselves. So it's just that the angel came to me instead of herself.
Yep, I think so. I do. Well,
All right,
thanks for sharing, honey.
Thanks. Very
I
interesting.
appreciate it. All right. We'll get to some more in just a minute. Now, I want you to note here that Deborah, we're still talking about Deborah Blum, talks about ghosts versus those in spirit. And she asks, would you ever want to see a ghost? She said no. Ha! I thought that was hilarious. It's like, what the hell are you investigating all this paranormal stuff if you don't want to see a ghost, right? Oh, but I guess investigating it is different than actually seeing someone standing there in front of you. So I love that. I should have asked Connie if she would ever like to see a ghost. I know she would. People, at least in my opinion, equate ghosts or the term ghosts with the negativity, with malevolent spirit. And I don't necessarily feel like that's what they mean here. And they didn't go into whether their ghosts were earthbound or whether they considered them earthbound. And mind you, we talked about that, I think it was last week or the week before, that earthbound is, I don't believe that that's a thing, to be honest with you, but that's my opinion. In my findings, I categorize a ghost as someone who remains closely connected to the earth. And that means someone who may not have crossed over fully yet. They're in spirit, but they haven't crossed into heaven yet. And I do believe that that's by choice. I don't think anyone is stuck. Matina says she had an incident while driving, an incredible, beautiful, super strong smell of incense. It was awesome and then gone. Like it was never there. It smelled like church. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So, of course, people can smell those things, especially Matina. Are you Matina the medium? If that's who you are, then you betcha baby, you know that. We can smell things, see things, feel things, hear things, just know that they're there. Depends upon what your clair is, if you will. And because we might not be able to see it, smell it, taste it, like literally, like it's just random and then it's gone. We kind of think, oh, that's just ridiculous. Don't be stupid. It was our imagination. Not necessarily so, my lovelies. Not necessarily so. I'm going to promote Robin. I'm going to get her up here to talk. Hi,
Lisa. Can you hear me?
I can't see you, but I can. Just a minute. Let me ask you to start your video. There you are.
Go.
Hi, yeah. Robin.
Hi, how are you doing? It's cold here in Oklahoma.
Oh, honey, we're up in Michigan. I'm cold here too. Cold and lots of snow.
Yes.
Yeah.
My grandmother also came over on the Queen Mary.
She did?
Yeah. I visited with her on the Queen Mary.
What was the year? Do you know?
Oh, I was probably 11 years old. I it was going back, but she came over on the Queen Mary. That's before it docked. It's dry docked, like you said now.
Yeah.
But she came over, I actually visited with her on the Queen Mary. So that's kind of cool.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
It's very, it's just as lovely now as it was before. Yes.
Yeah.
Just as lovely.
I need to get back there and have a visit. So I had an experience with I've had several experiences, but I helped my mother transition over. Matter of fact, I'm in the room that my mother passed away in.
Okay.
And right at the very end, I was laying in bed with her and she says, "Who is the man in the corner?" And of course I couldn't see him. But I just intuitively felt like it was her father.
Mhm.
And I said, "Is it your dad?" And she looked over at him and she says, "Yeah, I think so." And I says, "Mom, wave to him." I says, "He's waiting for you." And she reached up and she did a wave.
Aw.
And then about a week after, all kinds of signs, like the lights flickered when I came into her room. But a week after she passed away, she actually came into the room. Now, I'm kind of told Spirit, I don't want to see any spirits. I'm one of these.
So you don't want to see ghosts?
I don't want to see them, but I don't have a problem with feeling them or them touching me, or, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think I would like to see one stand right in front of me. And and I think they know that and they kind of respect that boundary. But my mother came in and laid on top of me. Now I was awake. I was kind of in that in between. I wasn't asleep, but I was awake and I was in that area. And she laid on top of me for the longest time and was just hugging me. And it didn't out or anything. I just knew it was her.
Yeah.
And then I'm a little claustrophobic. So after a little bit, I says, "Okay, Mom, you're going to have to get up." But I could actually feel her on top of me.
Yes.
And it was
I love that.
cool experience. It was
very
a cool
good. Thank you for sharing, Robin. It was wonderful talking with you.
Yeah. Thank you
for having. Stay warm.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So don't you guys love it? I just love it, how the different ways that we all perceive spirit. I just love how Robin's mom came and laid on her. I think I would be claustrophobic too. What a wonderful gift that is. What a wonderful gift that she received from her mom, just knowing without a doubt that her mom's there. I think that's great. So then we move to Lloyd Auerbach, who is with the Atlantic University. And he considers a ghost simply a spirit who hangs around after death, which that's pretty much where I am. That's pretty much where I am at. Whether it's, mind you, there's different purposes, just as many different purposes as there are many different people. But if someone intentionally hangs around after death, it could very well be, now in the negative side of it, it could be maybe they're still looking to get high or have a fix or get a drink or whatever. So in that case, then you might have entity attachment or something like that. Well, it's spirit attachment is what it is. So their intention isn't necessarily to harm you. Of course, it's simply to get high. Then we have those spirit people who are new on the spirit plane, who have made the decision to stay because of maybe family things. They want to make sure that their family's okay. They want to make sure their possessions are well cared for, or that nobody takes them. Fortunately, sometimes what happens in this life while we're living holds over into the next. Sometimes it does. And in that interim phase where the normal spirit person would pass into the spirit world, go into that first level of spirit, and within a couple days transcend into heaven, or what we call heaven, sometimes they're not interested. Like, I don't want to go there. I'm not interested. I'm going to stay here and pay attention to this stuff. You have a choice. That's God's gift to you. God's given you free will. All right. One of the things he asked was, and that was one of the questions, was, are deathbed apparitions ghosts? My answer is they could be, but usually not. Usually not. Usually these are your loved ones from heaven. Remember, it's just a wavelength. It's not like a literal place. Come to visit you. And the only difference is, the only reason why you're seeing it is because your soul, your spirit is becoming more spirit-like versus in the physical body. You're ascending yourself. If you're getting close to physical death and you start seeing these apparitions going on, it could very well be that you are becoming more spirit-like. Your spirit is becoming more ethereal. So you are able to tap into that much more readily. Is it semantics, the ghost and the spirit? Maybe. But I still feel like, as I said, there's too many people who consider the ghost as something malevolent, and it's usually not ever the case, to be honest with you. There was only one time, one time that when I was doing the investigations that I would consider something malevolent. And the only reason that it was so was because the energy that I encountered was very, I would say, sneaky. And to be honest with you, I could not have said whether this spirit energy was ever human. Interesting, huh? It was kind of creepy when I experienced it because I did not recognize the energy as ever having been in human form. So I found that interesting. And no, I didn't think it was a dog, or let me put it this way. I didn't recognize the spirit as ever been in physical form. Let me put it that way. That's a better way to put it. So Lloyd goes on and does agree with the concept of a conscious survival past physical death. And he believes it should be studied, which I think that's a great thing, because there's too many people that are having the same experiences. And when we get to talking to Dr. Christopher Kerr later on, I'll go into that a little bit more fully. All right. Tina says her boyfriend passed suddenly at 19. Wow. The next night I had the most vivid dream apologizing to me for leaving. And she swears he roamed around the earth for 3 full days before crossing over to heaven. He would knock on doors, rattle things in my house. It was insane. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So what I see as a medium, I'd say 95% anyways, usually stick around for 3 days. And usually because it's 3 days, then we have a funeral. So they stay around for that time to watch over the family, to watch over personal belongings, to help us through the grieving process, that type of thing. So, there could be any other reason, of course, but very often it's 3 days. So usually not too long after the funeral, then that's when they cross. Usually I can say with surely 12 hours or 24 hours. And I described that before with my niece, Chrissy, who passed away suddenly. So I'm sorry that you had a loved one like that pass over, Tina. You were young to experience something like that. Then we go into the Morris Jumel, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Jumel Mansion, which is in New York City. This house was built in 1765, and what a history it's had, right? Lots of presidents and influential people have lived there. And the one thing I wanted to note because of that, and it's been studied by paranormal teams for a long, long time with great success. However, I do want to note that even though there has been innumerable deaths in the home, it doesn't mean that that spirit is doomed to roam those halls. No, it's the same thing later on we show that Aaron Burr comes through in the EVP. Now, is Aaron Burr earthbound? No. But if it's his house, then he may choose to remain there just because it's his house. And of course, I don't know anything about him. I haven't investigated him or anything like that. But, was he a strict person with my possessions? Was I very tight with my possessions? Was I very adamant about keeping my possessions safe? Was I very maybe stingy? I don't know. I haven't investigated. There's a job for you guys. But so anyway, so I did want to make note that isn't the case, that just because he's in the house and can produce an EVP doesn't mean he's stuck there. And nor, here's the thing, nor does it mean that he's always there. It can simply be that as someone who lived in the house, he's aware of people in his house and then comes to visit the exact same time that the paranormal research is coming through. Interesting stuff, huh? There was one time I was asked to do a paranormal investigation or be the medium end of it. So they get like the paranormal team with the cameras and the EVPs and all that kind of stuff. And then we have separate camera crew. Then we have mediums and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes you go in with a lot of people. And so on one of these cases, I was investigating a very prominent hotel here in mid-Michigan. For years, paranormal teams have come through here, and oh my God, it's so haunted. It's horrible. Blah, blah, blah. No. It was the man who owned the house. Rattling, making noise, playing music, because this was his home. Was he malevolent? No. Is the place haunted? No. It's active with spirit activity, yeah, but it wasn't haunted. Big difference, see? Anyways, in any home there can be paranormal activity, of course. We've all experienced it. However, with the age of that home, with the museum or the mansion, you would figure that there's going to be more activity, of course. But then you got to think too, why would spirit just hang out in the house? Like, what the hell are they doing? Granted, there's no time on the other side, keep in mind. So 100 years here is like a blink of an eye there, from what I've been told by spirit. It might be what's going on, but like, what is there to do? Seriously, for God's sake, go hang out in heaven with the angels, I also wanted to make mention that all homes have their own vocabulary. In other words, all homes have their own unique creaks and groans and bumps and whirs and things like that. Every home does. And as an inhabitant, we come to learn what those sounds are, or what they mean, or what's normal. So if you yourself experience something like, what the hell was that? It very well may be spirit activity. One time my husband and I were at one end of the house watching TV. And at the other end of the house, we heard a huge crash. It seriously sounded so loud, like someone had just thrown a dresser or a chest of drawers across the room. It was really loud. And we looked at each other like, what the heck was that? So we came looking. Of course, there's nothing. But it was so loud and so real. It was my father, or my grandfather, just letting us know that he wasn't happy with the way I had rearranged the room. I love it. Everybody has creaks. That's just the way it is. Okay, then Tina also says, every house I live in is full of activity, but it's me they found, not my home. Right. That could be too. So just because you have noises in your house doesn't mean that the spirit are there because of the house. It could be there for you, because remember, your spirit loved ones follow you around all the time. Doesn't matter which home you are in. Okay. Tina, I'm going to promote you to panelist, my dear. Hi, Matina. How are you, my dear?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks. Do you have something to share?
Yes, actually, I've known Tina, who you just mentioned, for about 20 years, and I can attest to that with what happened with her boyfriend, but also there were so many incidents in her childhood home, but there was one in particular where I was walking through the hallway and I came downstairs and I said, I think I saw somebody in your mom's room. And her mom
Right?
says, what did he look like? So I described this man with blonde hair and he looked thin and tall, and this is how he was dressed. And her mom said, oh, that was my brother.
Oh,
and her brother had
see?
passed away probably 25 years earlier.
I love that because you had no notion of him, right? You didn't have a picture of him. You didn't know, well, you probably didn't know that he had passed, because you were a friend of Tina's and not her mom, right? But
I knew that he had passed, but I'd never met him. He passed before I ever knew them. So it was really interesting. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yes, no, I think that's great. I think it's great. So when we least expect it, because we're not in our left or not in our right brain, right? We're not intentionally tuning in. So it just happens randomly or seemingly random, right? Because spirits around us all the time. And so you were lucky enough to catch that. I love that.
It
So I'm
was,
sure
it was
she
great.
was,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm sure she was pretty excited about having her brother hang out, which was great.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing, honey.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So then we go to the Society of Psychical Research, and they talk about spirit photography. I've got some photos to show you guys in just a minute. I'll share with you some of my expertise on orbs and spirit photos and things like that. And what's dust, what's sand, what is an anomaly, what is just freaking weird. Yeah. So here we go. I'm going to show you those now. This was taken by me using my phone, my iPhone, matter of fact, a couple years ago. And this was at Gettysburg. My grandson and I took a trip down south and we toured all the old haunts, if you will, because he loves history. And my father and stepmother, as a matter of fact, have written quite a few books about Michigan soldiers who were in the Civil War. So I was very interested in checking these out. Now, I want you to keep in mind, because all photos that are taken outside can be rife with dust and sand. Oddly enough, almost all the big orbs that you see here are right around this monument, which is really old. I can't remember who it was. It was so long ago, but I love this one here in the middle. And look at the little bottom of this, where you can see the movement of the orb, right? And you might see these in your photos where you have an orb and you see the tail on it. Yeah. So this just means that your camera has caught a flare while the orb is moving, regardless of what it is. So it could be dust, it could be sand, anything. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Now, this one here was taken at Mackinac on Mackinac Island. This was in front of an attorney's office, and I got the heebie-jeebies here. Heebie-jeebies. And so you take photos, right? And I'm going to show you something. So as you're taking photos of these paranormal things, what you want to do is I can get heebie-jeebies here. So I turn on my camera and blah, 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 blah. And then I point my phone toward the entity or toward the energy or whatever, and I take the photo. Because what's going to happen is, if you look, of course, you're not going to pick it up, right? But if you talk about your peripheral vision, this is where your right brain is and where you can see spirit more often. I can sense that there's a spirit hanging out here. I'm not sure who it is because I don't want to look. But so I get my camera ready and I take a photo, right? We often, well, even in the show, it mentions that specific film worked better, which I've not noticed that to be the case. If it's going to show up, it's going to show up. And this was not a foggy day. As you can see, like toward the bottom of the photo, it's a bright, sunshiny day. And as you can see, these little orby things here, this is dust. This is dust here. See how it's very see-through and transparent. Now, this photo was given to me by Jeannie Camerata. She's a medium and a Reiki master. She's given me this. This is a photo of a man's face that was seen in a piano. So I zoomed out and I zoomed in. At first I didn't see it. At first I thought it was just like this is his profile. But no, you can clearly see it. Eye and a nose, mouth. Here's the bottom of his chin, right? So very neat. I'm not sure what this is. You really can't make that out. But photos, spirit photos in objects is very, very, very common. Very common. Inanimate objects are great conductors for some reason. And I have some other photos that are just pretty freaky. I'll show you. Look at this one. Kind of creepy, right? This photo was taken when I was doing a spirit gallery. This is a window. This is a window. And it was cold and the windows were fogged up. And this is I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but this is a picture or taken down in Mount Clemens, Michigan, which is it's not a great area, but it's improving, right? It's improving. The area where I was right downtown. It was nice, but so I really found this interesting. It's kind of like an ogreish face here. Here's the mouth, nose, eye. So if you couldn't see that. I'm sure there's fingers here. There's also the we call profile vision of a man's head. See his hat, like a bowler hat. See, it's got a stand-up collar here. There's also a tiny image here of a face. Can't tell if it's a man or a woman though. So there's all kinds of pictures and faces in these weird random things. This picture was given to me by a client. She sent this along because I, at the time, was doing paranormal investigations. She did not have angel wings on her back. As you can see, there's nothing here that's attached or anything like that. And you can see how it even comes out here and comes along in front of her body. And the same fluid motion comes down, right? So it's like a fluid motion. I can't say for sure, but I'm thinking this might be an angel. What else could it be, right? But how cool is that? So traditional orb, you'll see it's very opaque. It's very opaque and often has what appears to be a nucleus in the center. That often happens. We have two little blips right here. This is, if you look back, I don't know if you can see it from your angle or from what you're seeing, because this isn't really a great photo, but if you stand back a little bit, there's a little story about this, and this is kind of creepy and it freaked me out. So I was sitting right here where I am now. I was doing some work, and I have a bookcase right here, like 2 feet away. So I'm sitting here typing away, doing my thing on the computer, and I could have sworn there was a man standing here. Well, this copper pot is about this big. It sat, doesn't anymore. It sat on the shelf right next to me. And I saw that man's face in that pot and it freaked me the hell out, let me tell you. But of course, I took a picture. So as you can see, we have an eye here, an eye here, very clear eye here, nose, mustache, little beardy thing going on right here. See? And his chin. So that was in a pot that I have. I actually still have it just because it's so freaking cool. It was an antique. I used to collect antiques for my house back when that was in the rage, like 80s, 70s, 80s, somewhere a long time ago. This was given to me by a friend, and this is her house in her bedroom. And one day she felt someone looking at her, and so she just snapped a random picture. These images here, these white marks here, pardon me, these white marks here were not seen by her, but when she took the picture, they showed up. So I think to me, it's kind of creepy. Not quite certain what this is yet, but these certainly look like eyes, don't they? And a nice high cheekbone. Kind of reminds me of a skeleton face, to be honest with you. You know, I don't know what happened afterward to say whether something happened in her life afterwards or if the history of the home could foretell something. I don't know. This was probably the most prominent orb I've ever seen. This is the son of one of my clients. This little boy here was a twin. His twin died. So this was his first day in kindergarten. His mom turns around, snaps the picture in the car with her phone, and this is what shows up. Come on, people. Can you not believe that this is his little twin following him around. You really can't get too far in. I've tried to zoom in on this to try to get a face or a picture or something like that. And I really can't see it, but then I need to turn it around and stuff like that. So, and in your photos, yes, if you do get something such as that, turn it around, turn it upside down, look at the different angles. As I said earlier, specific film really isn't necessary. The man, his name was John Huckert, who used a Polaroid film. I can't remember the name of the film, but it's no longer used, nor can you probably find a Polaroid camera anymore. But, well, I don't know. I haven't looked. No, you don't need that. Any camera works. If you're going to catch it, you're going to catch it. Then, we go back to Leslie Kean is the author who's written the book, who we're kind of studying in this show. And she talks about crisis apparitions as being one of the things that brings about these pre-death visions. What she senses this, or what she saw, was that many of the crisis apparitions were kind of like a final oomph from spirit within ourselves, like a final energy blast or whatever from someone who's in the act of dying stage or is just about to pass. We've all heard those stories, or maybe even experienced ourselves, where we think that, someone's on death's door and then they get better for 24 hours and then they pass, right? We've all heard of those. That's that oomph. So she talks about the crisis apparitions, and crisis being, we're in the act of dying phase, which, mind you, can take weeks or days or whatever, but usually, from what I've experienced from hearing clients, it's usually a week. Later on, when we talk about Dr. Kerr, he even talks about someone having experiences 6 months before. So I don't know if that's a crisis apparition or just an apparition. Maybe they were just seeing things. Connie mentioned, and just like Martina mentioned just now, right? So it could be either or. So then I want you to keep in mind that the apparitions don't have to be visual. They can be sounds. They can be gut instincts, feelings. Just know that, right? Just know that. So we get to this Christopher Kerr. He's an MD, and he practices end-of-life work, right? So practices with the aged and things like that. So he talks about the end-of-life visions and experiences, and he talks about the apparitions or spiritual experience normally happening within a few weeks, with what he's seeing. However, there's this one lady who she looked put together for an older woman, but she did talk about seeing spirit 6 months prior to the actual interview. Now, I don't know if she's since passed. I couldn't tell you, but she did talk about that. And again, I don't know about that. End of life experience. I love the word experience because it's a great way to describe what's actually happening. It's quite often that when we're about to pass, as I said earlier, we become more ethereal, more spirit-like. We begin to pull that silver cord, if you will, pull that cord away from our physical body. That silver cord, way back when Shirley MacLaine was into this, was the connection between, or what connects us to our physical body, what connects our physical self from our body. And as we are actively dying, that silver cord, or the connection, starts loosening and starts disconnecting. And that's when we become more ethereal. We become more spirit-like ourselves, even though we are in the physical body still. And then we can pick up these things much more readily. In that instance, we kind of are standing in between the two worlds, right? We can function here and we can function there. Pretty cool. We can experience our loved ones again, even loved ones who either we never met here in physical life. However, we don't often remember those experiences. Now, I want you to keep in mind that we often leave our physical body. when we're healthy in our sleep state. You see, our natural world is up there. So we're often leaving our body. Some of us are lucky enough to remember a visitation. Some of us, well, most of us are not. Most of us simply come back and don't remember the dreams that we had, or don't remember those visitations, or the work that we're doing on the other side as we simultaneously live here. So it would make sense that since someone who is in the active stage of passing and has a higher frequency or a different frequency, that our energy shifts. It might change, but it never goes away. Dr. Kerr then mentions the difference between someone who's going through end of life and having dementia, or medication-related visions, which often are seen as PC, choppy, and exhibit confusion. Right? You'll see that whether they're on morphine or they're just relaxed to a different degree. There's a big difference between that. And then he said the people who are actually having those apparitions or the experiences are those who are actually completely clear, like, what's today's date? What's your name? Who are you? Who is everyone else? And who are you seeing? And then you can mention that. And this is what's actually happened in the vision of many of these people. In other words, they're completely lucid. So it's difficult for someone who's very left brain, such as a doctor, lawyer, engineer, anyone who's in the medical field, that kind of thing. And I say left brain, right brain, just because the left brain is more about analytical, conscious thought, where the subconscious right brain is more the artsy, non-analytical, go with the flow, spiritual development type person, right? Now, granted, you can never have one without the other. We always work in tandem. It's simply one is maybe stronger, or how we're made. There really is no rhyme or reason to a lot of this stuff. So it's difficult for a left brain person who deals with facts to conceive of the possibility of an after-death communication or mediumship, which is why I believe Dr. Kerr doesn't believe in mediums or would never go to one, because it can't be proven. However, he did not say that they were liars, that they were a fallacy, or that they don't exist, or that spirit communication can't happen. I find it interesting because as a psychic medium, obviously, I often tell my doctors what I do for a living, and they look at me like, what the hell? But you know what? It's the older ones. It's the older doctors who are 50 and up, maybe, that understand that there's more going on here than what the physical brain can analyze. There's more to this world. The young ones are going to argue with you, but the older ones, I think, have set their ego aside and realize, that there's more to it than what we know. So I love that he did not mention that he does not believe it, or that they don't exist. Because the concepts of mediumship and spirit communication, after death communication, whatever, the only way that we can prove it is through evidence. And that's why I am a wholehearted believer in having evidential mediumship. Whether you're a medium or a sitter seeking a medium for communication with loved ones, angels or spirit guides, the evidence should still be there. There's no reason why the evidence shouldn't be there, because even angels and guides the angels who have been on never been in physical form, they can still provide access and information concerning your life, where the spirit guides have also been in physical form. So it can be very telling. It can be very telling. So next week, we're talking about past lives, which is my love, because then we get to talk about reincarnation. Reincarnation, I've taught reincarnation for probably 20 years. And of course, reincarnation goes hand in hand with karma, which I'm not sure if they talk about that. I'll have to go back. And of course, I always go back and relook at the episode, and we'll talk about that next week. So next Monday, 8 o'clock, we'll talk about that. So get your questions ready. Reincarnation is pretty in-depth. It can be very in-depth. So if you have questions or comments or whatever, tune in next week. And thanks for chiming in, everybody. I'll see you next week, I hope. And take care. God bless. Stay safe. Stay warm. Have a good week. Bye-bye.